let's see. Ethics. What are ethics? I mean, this speech is ethics and atheism, so I've got to describe what are ethics and probably describe what is atheism. I'm going to talk about ethics as described by philosophy, and I'm going to talk about ethics a little bit as described by religion. Even though I was raised Catholic, though I don't remember any of those times. What are ethics? As set up by philosophy, ethics are subjective rules which guide us to possibly know what is good and what is bad. One of the earliest philosophers, well, one of the earliest philosophers that we still talk about, and we don't know how far back, who the first philosopher was necessarily, that's not important. But Plato said that there is a realm, some sort of space, some sort of ethereal area where good exists. It's beyond what we can know, but that it exists somewhere. So we can, at least it's something that we can discuss and talk about. Let's see. Then let's talk about religion. How does religion, or I shouldn't say religion, I'm going to say monotheistic religion. Monotheistic means a religion that has one God. I think that's an important distinction to make. There are lots of religions that believe that God is in the trees and God is in the sky and the moon and all kinds of things like that. That's a whole lot more complicated when you get into ethics and that kind of stuff. I think in that case you would say, well, I'm not going to cut down that tree. You know, if you think about that as an ethical or non-ethical thing that you could do, I'm not going to cut down that tree because there's a God inside of that tree, and that God is going to, you know, be pretty angry if I cut down that tree. But I'm not talking about polytheistic religion. I'm talking about monotheistic religion. Judaism, Christianity, Islam, and Catholicism. Anyway, so these say four similar, slightly dissimilar religions all believe that a code of laws, a code of ethics, a code of morals was dictated to some seemingly random people, and then those laws dictated by said God, depending on which religion you're talking about, was written down or transcribed or copied and then translated, etc., over time, and religions were based on it, and they said we have these things called morals, and we have our religious ethics, or morals, just call it that. You could say, as per religion, ethics is a code of laws that was set down by a single entity to govern every human on earth. Okay, so philosophical, you know, just to say how you can have ethics coming from philosophy. At least Plato said that there is, you know, good and bad is an actual thing that exists, so that we can discuss it and we can actually try to figure out what that means. And then coming from religion. So what is atheism? Because this is ethics and atheism. Atheism, you could also say, you could also call it anti-theism if you wanted to. It's a lack of beliefs, a lack of theist belief, sorry, and no belief in a higher power, or at least one that is an active higher power rather than a passive higher power. you would have to ask individual atheists as to what they believe, but they generally believe that there is no monotheistic God, or if there is a God, then it's just something that exists and doesn't actually do anything. There are two general kinds of atheism. There's strong atheism and there's weak atheism. Strong atheism says, if I don't say, I can't think. My brain will go blank. That's how I think. Strong atheism says there is no evidence for a God, so you should not believe in one. There's no evidence to prove a God, then you should not believe in one. Weak atheism says there is no proof of God, so there is no reason to even, am I getting this right? There's no reason to postulate whether you need to use God for answers to things. Did I get that right? Strong atheism, yeah, okay. Maybe I wrote it down. I did write it down. That's good. Strong atheism says that because there's no evidence for a God, then there must not be a God. Weak atheism says there's no evidence and there's just simply no reason to believe in one. You could ask, say, a religious person, they might say, I believe in God, and I would ask them, do you believe in the Easter Bunny? Do you believe in leprechauns? Or do you believe in flying teapots or cell phones or water bottles that circle around the sun giving out ethics and codes of laws and stuff like that? I think the next thing, because I need to go more into ethics, and what does it even mean to discuss ethics and to talk about ethics and to have ethical and moral propositions or statements, or even to have questions. So there are two basic groups, two very basic groups. You have cognitivists and non-cognitivists. Inside of non-cognitivism, you have emotivists and prescriptivism. Inside of cognitivists, the group of cognitivists, you have moral realism and error theorists. So, non-cognitivists, I'll start with them, say moral propositions have no truth and no untruth. It's a very strange way to think about it, but inside of that group you have emotivists who say that instead, well, maybe first I should talk about what is a moral proposition. A moral proposition is something, say, like murder is bad, stealing is bad, or I can say that helping your friend is good. Those are moral propositions. So non-cognitivists say moral propositions have no truth and or no untruth. Inside of that group, emotivists say morals come from our inner feelings. They're actually just part of our inner feelings, and it doesn't matter what a person really says about them. Prescriptivism says moral propositions are commands. They're not actually propositions at all. Whereas someone might say murder is bad or stealing is bad, what they're actually saying is do not murder, do not steal. So they're changing it from a proposition into a command. That's what prescriptivism says. So now inside of the group of cognitivists who believe